There was an ideological war being waged in the early 20th century. These ideologies that were competing were modernists and fundamentalists. Largely, this war was being waged in the world of academia. The battle was pervasive and divisive. Mark Nold goes on to describe some of this modernist fundamentalist debates as he describes one man who is Charles Augustus Briggs. Briggs was a professor at Union Theological Seminary, and Briggs was also a man that was largely influenced by the scholarship that was coming out of Germany, a very enlightened modernist kind of scholarship. There's an article in the New York Times from May 1891 dealing with Briggs's theological framework and his newly released book. This article starts to highlight just how pervasive and divisive this period was. That article is titled "Whither?" A theological question of the times. They go on to start talking about Presbyterians. Briggs was a part of that denomination. And talking about Presbyterians, the author says that they were supposed to be so firmly wedded to John Calvin and the Westminster Confession and Catechisms that nothing could ever move them out of the position of conservatives of conservatives. The Princeton divines, like the family of Hodges, Dr. Alexander, Dr. Shedd, and still others, that they hold fast to the traditional views of Calvin and the reformers after this sort, as they understand them. But equally learned and able men in the Presbyterian body take the opposite ground. Everywhere, the cry comes up for the relief of the heavy yoke of dogmatic statements which can no longer be tolerated or named without horror and indignation. Men like McCosh, Schaff, Howard Crosby, and numerous others are in the forefront of the movement, and Dr. Briggs also has planted himself firmly on that side and has written the present volume in order to fully define his position and point the way to a new and better order of things. Even the author was clearly taking the side of Briggs and communicating just how divisive this stuff really was. Charles Briggs created another firestorm in 1891. He was just appointed chair of the biblical theology at Union Theological Seminary, and he gave his inaugural address titled "The Authority of Holy Scripture." As a result of this address, he was put on trial for heresy, and as a result of that, he was pushed out of the Presbyterian denomination. According to Harvey Hill, it was therefore no accident that Briggs' trial revolved around the nature, locus, and appropriate limits of religious authority within the institutional constraints imposed by the Presbyterian Church. Briggs argued for a progressive religious authority exercised to a significant degree by scholars, while his opponents defended a static, ahistoric religious authority grounded in Scripture and exercised by the institutional church. Briggs continues to prove just how divisive he was in this modernist fundamentalist movement, and it's quite logical to see how he was taking such a different position when it comes to where truth is derived from, and how he felt that the scholars and the scholarship should have such a say in defining how things should be run and what we should really believe. And these issues did not stop with Union Theological Seminary. Reverend Frank Clendon wrote to his bishop. Frank Clendon was rector of St. Peter's Church in Westchester, and he writes in this open article describing reading Briggs's work, and he says that he has read his work with care and deep regret. I feel as sure as I am of anything of this world that the book is fundamentally heretical from the first to the last. Its teaching, if true, would undermine not only the whole Catholic Church, Greek, Roman, and Anglican, but it would destroy utterly even the faith and foundation of Protestantism. It leaves nothing of any form of Christianity except that which scholarship, whatever that may mean, may be pleased to last admit. Even the Catholics saw the heretical side of what Briggs was proposing, and that who is going to define scholarship even. Briggs, like many modernists in the modernist fundamentalist movement, was very divisive.